Before anything else, hit the like button right now and subscribe to the channel, because this kind of content doesn't show up all the time, and if you truly follow the NBA, this is the kind of information that completely changes the way you see what's happening behind the scenes in the league. With that done, let's get straight to the point. The vibe in Milwaukee has changed, and it didn't happen subtly. It wasn't a close loss. It wasn't one isolated detail. It wasn't just any random bad night. It was a heavy, visible, uncomfortable stretch. 4 losses in the last 5 games, 3 of them by massive margins. Losses that leave no room for debate, losses that expose structural problems. And the most recent one came against the Oklahoma City Thunder, a young, aggressive, organized team, and still not at full strength, with key pieces out injured. Even so, the result was a 20-point blowout. The fallout is brutal. Right now, the Milwaukee Bucks are out of the playoff picture, 11th in the East. For a team that, for years, was a constant presence near the top of the conference, this isn't just a warning, it's a reality check. And when reality hits like that, someone has to speak. This time, it was Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis didn't raise his voice. He didn't point the finger directly at one specific name, but it may have been his harshest message ever. When he says, clearly, that the chemistry simply doesn't exist, that's not a figure of speech. When he says there are players being selfish, trying to do everything alone, wanting to carry the team on their backs, that's not outside speculation. That's someone who lives in that locker room every single day. That's someone who feels the game from the inside. And the strongest part isn't even what he accuses, but what he reveals about himself. Giannis makes it clear he's not the kind of leader who demands the ball, who shouts, who throws teammates under the bus. He's never been that. Throughout his career, he's always trusted that others would understand the weight he creates on the floor, the gravity he draws, the space he generates. And now, according to him, that isn't happening. Not because he's gotten worse, but because the team around him seems to no longer understand how to play with him. He tries to understand the reasons. Is it youth? Is it a slump? Is it the feeling that everyone wants to be the hero of the night? He admits he doesn't know. And that line, "I really don't understand," coming from a player of his caliber, might be the most worrying of all. Because when the franchise star doesn't understand what's happening around him, it means something has broken. Even so, on the court, the numbers are still ridiculous. In the most recent loss, he took only 11 shots, and still finished with a double-double. That sums up the current paradox perfectly. Giannis is still dominant, efficient, impactful, but the team doesn't follow. And that leads to the inevitable question, is the problem temporary or structural? Looking at it coldly, the Bucks' moment had been showing signs even before this negative stretch. It's not just about losing games. It's about how they're losing. These are lopsided defeats, where the team looks like it has no answers, no adjustments, no identity. And when you look at the recent games, Giannis, still operating at the absurdly high standard he's always had, is taking fewer shots than normal. Not because he disappeared, but because defenses are managing to take the ball out of his hands, double him, crowd him, confuse him, and the rest of the roster isn't consistently making them pay. It's also important to add context about the opponent. The Oklahoma City Thunder have one of the smartest defenses in the league right now. A team that wrecks offensive reads, removes comfort, forces quick decisions. Plenty of offenses walk off the floor looking worse than they really are. But that doesn't explain everything, because the problem in Milwaukee didn't start in that game. That game just exposed it. When you widen the lens and look at the season as a whole, the feeling is decline. Not a one-off dip, but a gradual slide. Even before this bad run, the Bucks weren't being viewed inside the league as a true title contender. There was respect, of course. Nobody ignores a team with Giannis Antetokounmpo. Any team with him is automatically dangerous in a playoff series. But there's a big difference between being dangerous and being the favorite, and that leads to the most sensitive point in this entire discussion. Giannis is 31. He's in his physical prime, his technical prime, his statistical prime, and he plays for a team that has clearly already passed its peak competitive cycle. Milwaukee were a real title contender for 6-7 seasons. They won. They came close other times. They burned draft picks, made aggressive trades, pushed all their chips in. And now what's left is a roster that no longer matches the level of its best player. This isn't an attack on the Bucks' history. The opposite. It's recognizing a cycle that's ending. NBA teams work like that. Very few manage to reinvent themselves without going through a rupture. And what makes this moment even more delicate is that Giannis outlived the cycle. He's still elite. The team isn't. Publicly, both he and the organization say the same thing. There's no trade request. There's no intention to trade. The coach says he won't move him. Giannis says he won't demand an exit. Those statements exist. They're real. But the NBA doesn't live only off what's said into a microphone. It lives off what's read between the lines. And right now, the entire league is watching. Even if no trade happens in the next 2 weeks before the deadline, the simple fact that this scenario exists already creates waves. Executives start moving. Franchises run simulations. Teams adjust plans. Because if a player like Giannis ever becomes available, directly or indirectly, the impact is a chain reaction. Nothing stays the same afterwards. There's a growing perception behind the scenes that this story is heading toward separation. Maybe not now. Maybe not in an explosive way, but in an inevitable way. Nobody wants to be seen as the villain. Neither the player who abandons the franchise, nor the team that gives up on its idol. At the same time, everyone wants the best possible deal. And that balance is fragile. What makes it even more symbolic is the atmosphere around it. Recently, the fans booed. Something rare in Milwaukee when it comes to Giannis, he responded. He booed back. Another unusual sign. That shows emotional wear. It shows a crack in the relationship. Not irreversible, but real. Giannis has already given everything he could there. A title, MVPs, historic finals, legendary nights. He owes the franchise nothing. And the franchise, from a business perspective, also has to think about the future. Keeping a superstar on a team with no real competitiveness doesn't protect a legacy, doesn't protect assets, doesn't protect the organization. And this is where the story starts to go beyond Milwaukee. Because when a player at that level enters this kind of context, the ripple effect becomes league-wide. Every big market watches. Every contender evaluates. Every team with real ambition asks, what if? In the next part, this analysis expands to the direct impact this has on the NBA's power dynamics, and why certain franchises in particular are paying maximum attention to every word said by Giannis Antetokounmpo. When you understand this isn't just an isolated rant, but a faithful snapshot of a cycle that's run out, it becomes easier to fit every piece of the puzzle, because Giannis's comments didn't come out of nowhere. They came after years of attempts, adjustments, high-stakes bets, and decisions that drained almost every future resource the Milwaukee Bucks had. Draft picks were shipped out, flexibility disappeared, and the roster got patched together season after season, always trying to buy time, always trying to keep the window open for one more year. The problem is, the NBA doesn't forgive stagnation. While Milwaukee tried to hold its spot at the top, other teams reinvented themselves. The East got younger, more athletic, deeper. The game changed. It got faster, more spaced out, more aggressively defensive. And the Bucks, little by little, started to look like a team reacting instead of imposing. Giannis, individually, has never been more complete. That's the cruelest part of this whole story. He's not declining. He's not trying to survive his own body. Quite the opposite. Today, he's a smarter player, more patient, more skilled. He finishes better than ever. He chooses his moments better. And maybe the most symbolic stat of all, he's shooting threes at the best level of his career, close to 40%. That old argument that he doesn't provide spacing has basically collapsed. We're talking about nearly 30 points per game, on 65% shooting from the field. Absurd numbers. Numbers of one of the 5 best players on the planet. And even so, the team sinks. That contrast is impossible to ignore. Because when a player gives you all of that, and the collective result is irrelevance, the conclusion is inevitable. The problem isn't him. In recent years, Milwaukee tried the most obvious and most expensive play, bringing in Damian Lillard. On paper, it looked perfect. A lethal guard who could share the spotlight, ease the pressure, decide big games. In practice, it didn't work. Injuries, poor fit, defensive issues, rhythm. The experiment failed. And with it, even more assets went out the door. The recent playoff record is brutal. In 4 years, only one series win. A run of quick eliminations, some of them humiliating. 9 losses in the last 10 series. That isn't bad luck. That's a pattern. That's a team that lost the ability to compete at the highest level when the game tightened. And here comes the most sensitive part, the roster around Giannis today. This isn't about disrespect. These are NBA players, professionals, talented within their roles. But when you look at a player of Giannis Antetokounmpo's caliber and compare that to the real level of support he has, the gap is glaring. It's not about 1 or 2 names. It's about competitive ceiling. High-level basketball is simple in this sense. Superstars need structure, not just raw talent, but fit, identity, complementarity. Giannis needs players who understand when to cut, when to space, when to punish the double team, when to play without the ball. And right now, what you see on the floor is confusion. Individual decisions, clogged offense, disorganized defense. That's why when people talk about a trade, it's not about ingratitude, it's about logic. It's about recognizing that keeping everything exactly as it is doesn't help anyone, neither the player nor the franchise. Giannis wasn't booed for no reason. The crowd feels it. The crowd can tell something is wrong. And when even he, known for being loyal, quiet, and committed, starts showing frustration publicly, it's a sign the emotional limit is getting close. From a business standpoint, the equation is clear. Giannis Antetokounmpo is a massive asset. A player who would bring an outrageous haul of draft picks, young talent, and financial flexibility. Franchises have already paid fortunes for stars on a lower tier. The recent market proves it. Historic packages have been built for players who aren't even close to Giannis's impact. So the question floating around behind the scenes isn't whether there's interest. That's obvious. The question is when and under what conditions, because nobody wants to be the first to pull the trigger. Nobody wants to carry the label of the one who broke up an idol, but at the same time, everyone knows waiting too long can shrink the return. And that's exactly why this situation starts affecting the entire league. Executives talk, agents read the room, coaches adjust their messaging. Teams stuck in the middle, between competing and rebuilding, start watching with extra attention. Because a move this big changes the NBA's balance of power instantly. There's also an important psychological factor here. Players like Giannis don't talk for no reason. When he brings up the lack of chemistry, he's putting words to something that's been felt for months, possibly more than a season. But now the results made it impossible to hide. The frustration left the locker room and went to the microphone. And when that happens, you don't fully rewind it. Even if the team strings together a few wins, even if it improves temporarily, the doubt has already been planted. The question already exists. How far can this roster really go? And the honest answer, looking at it coldly, is short, not very far. This is the point where the scenario starts to lock into place in a way that feels almost inevitable. A superstar in his prime, a team without resources, a divided fan base, a recent history of failures, a market watching. All of it creates the perfect storm. This isn't about drama. It's about competitive maths. The most interesting part is that Giannis doesn't need to ask for anything. The simple fact that he keeps playing at this level already puts pressure on the organization. Because every wasted year costs more. Every season without a real title chance wastes something rare. Talents like this don't come around every day. And when they do, they have to be treated as the top priority. Whatever the outcome, one thing is certain. Nothing happening right now is irrelevant. Every quote, every gesture, every result amplifies the feeling that we're watching the start of a transition. Maybe slow, maybe quiet, but real. And that's exactly why you need to follow this closely. Because decisions this big don't explode all at once. They build little by little. And when they finally happen, everyone says the signs were there. If you want to keep understanding the NBA behind the scenes, the moves that truly matter, and what could completely change the direction of the league, hit the like button now and subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot for this content to reach more people who truly love basketball. And stay tuned, because this story is still far from over. Sotto, at 22 years old, is an athlete with an impressive track record, something that grabs everyone's attention. His size is remarkable, but what truly makes a difference is the combination of this attribute with his skill and agility. With a clear mastery of the paint game and an offensive ability that stands out, he is the type of player who can make a significant impact on any team. When we consider his qualities, it becomes evident that we're talking about a center who is not only a rim protector, but also creative on offense, making him a real promise for the future. However, his stature and talent are only part of the challenge. The transition to the NBA is a tough process that requires much more than one might expect. The intensity of the league, the speed of the plays, and the physical demand are levels higher than those found in any other basketball league in the world, and this presents a huge challenge for any young player. If Sotto were to be signed by the Golden State Warriors, the implications go beyond the court. The Bay Area, where cultural diversity is a trademark, has a significant Filipino community. Kai's presence as a Filipino would not just be another addition to the team, but a symbol of pride and representation for millions of fans around the world. His impact could be felt not only on the court, but also in the hearts of the fans. Imagine the energy at the Chase Center upon seeing this player, who represents a segment of the global population with so much passion. The Filipino fan base, with its contagious enthusiasm, could transform the atmosphere, creating a unique vibe at every game. Furthermore, by attracting more international attention, the Warriors could expand their brand to unimaginable levels, reaching new markets, especially in Southeast Asia, where basketball has been growing significantly. The entry of a young athlete into the NBA is always a moment filled with challenges, and with Sotto, it wouldn't be any different. The league demands more than just natural skill. Consistency and defensive agility are equally essential. Although the athlete has shown potential at various times, his experience in the Japanese league demonstrated that there are still adjustments to be made. Moments of brilliance are clear, especially on offense, but the NBA's level is unforgiving, and every weakness is quickly exploited. Kai will need to improve his adjustment to the fast-paced rhythm of the league and refine aspects of his game that may be vulnerable. As much as the NBA is a trial by fire for any player, the good news for Kai is that the Warriors, a franchise known for developing talent, could be the perfect environment for him. Under the guidance of great sports legends like Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, along with a highly qualified coaching staff, Kai could evolve in impressive ways, learning and absorbing as much as possible from those who are references in global basketball. However, the pressure to be ready to contribute will be immense. Every spot on the Warriors roster is valuable, and the team aims to win more titles now while preparing for the future with promising young players. Therefore, Kai will need to quickly show that he's ready to be an important piece in the team's pursuit of their next championship. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep up with more content like this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you'll stay updated on everything happening in the basketball world. Oh, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to get notified whenever a new video is posted here. Leave your comment too, we want to know your opinion. See you in the next video.